Today's question is from our colleague called Crowell from Canada, and is concerned about the issue of brain death. He says he has heard of brain death and how people can become brain dead, and is wondering, what is this, how can it be prevented, and what are some of the causes? Hello, our dear viewers. You're welcome to this YouTube platform, Health Tips and Tricks, and I'm your physician, Dr. Andrew, to take you through. If you are new to this channel, kindly feel free to subscribe so that we can continue educating you about your health and helping you live a better, healthy, and productive life. So, without wasting time, we are going to go through this issue, which our colleague has called brain death. So, in layman's terms, yes, you can term it brain death. However, in a sort of a more technical language, I would say it's not necessarily a brain death, but it is something we call a loss of brain function. Because brain death would be extreme, but we call a loss of brain function. And what is this? Basically, in simple terms, this is a progressive loss of brain function. The brain does very many functions, and what are some of these? For example, helping you think critically, for example, thinking through life's problems. It is a part of the brain that deals with that. There are some other parts of the brain that deal with activities, the parts of the brain that enable you to do different activities. For example, walking to work, carrying certain things, performing activities, basically using your muscles. There are parts of the brain that help us balance as we move, again, to do with movement and actions. There are parts of the brain that help us with behavior, having appropriate behavior in society. We have parts of the brain that deal with memory. We have parts of the brain that deal with language, helping you to learn different languages. We have parts of the brain that deal with critical thinking, for example, calculations, doing some mathematics. So all these functions, once they start deteriorating, this is what we call progressive loss of brain function. And this is what our colleague from Canada is concerned about. So we are going to look at what are some of the things that can cause this, and what are some of the things that some of the ways in which this can be prevented. But before we do that, we shall first look at what is it and what are some of its symptoms, and what are some of the early signs that you can see that show you that, probably I am having some loss of brain function, or a relative of mine is having some loss of brain function. So we shall look at different aspects of the brain, and we shall look at the things they do. So some different parts of the brain do different functions, like we have already noted out. So one important function of the brain is what we call memory. So if you notice a person, or you notice yourself and you're starting to have memory loss, this can be a sign that you're having loss of brain function. You start forgetting small things, maybe forgetting people's names, maybe forgetting where you've placed something. So that's one thing we can look at. And also in terms of long-term memory, sometimes you can, for example, forget the year in which you were born. You can forget the year in which a country got independence. Some things which are obvious and basic knowledge. So that's one sign that you're probably having loss of brain function. We can look at performing different tasks. You start getting difficulty performing certain tasks which have been easy for you or for the person. For example, look at maybe your grandmother preparing a meal for you at home, and she has been maybe baking a cake. And one time she comes and she tries to bake a cake and skips certain steps. Yet it is something she has done over and over again for a long time. So this is a sign that she could be having some kind of loss of brain function. Look at disorientation. Sometimes you are with someone, and then maybe your grandparent, your brother, your sister, and then you notice that they have forgotten who you are. You tell them, it's me, and they can't understand who you are. Maybe they don't know where they are. They are maybe at home, and maybe this person thinks he's maybe in a hospital or in a park somewhere. So these are also signs of loss of brain function. Or a person cannot easily tell what time it is. It is 7 a.m. in the morning, but this person thinks it is 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So this is also a sign of loss of brain function. We can look at language. We have parts of the brain that deal with language. And these parts that deal with language deal with helping you to put different words together to come up with speech. So sometimes you notice a person, as they are speaking, they use inappropriate words. For example, they try to look at, for example, the word phone, and they try to get the word phone from memory, but it disappears. And instead they say a device that's used for calling someone. So if you notice someone having such lapses, maybe they want to talk about a plate, and they say a device from which we eat food. When they start losing some of these words that are key in language, and this can also be a sign of loss of brain function. We have things like changes in abstract thinking. Abstract thinking includes things like addition, multiplication, maybe counting money. You send someone, maybe someone goes to the shop to buy something which they have always done, and they are unable to calculate the money properly. So some of these things also show that someone is having progressive loss of brain function. And then we have things like poor judgment. For example, someone who is having loss of brain function will not have good judgment. For example, you find outside it is very hot, and this person puts on 2 sweaters. Because they can't judge and say it is hot, I need to put on a light clothing. Maybe it is cold and they put on light clothing, the opposite. So lack of judgment is also a factor that can show that someone is having loss of brain function. Then we have what we call spatial skills. Spatial skills deal with someone knowing their position in space, their position in an environment, and this affects usually a lot. For example, if you're driving, maybe you've been a driver for a long time and you've never had any issues with driving. But this time, as you're bringing your car to park it in the garage, you cannot easily tell the position of your car in relation to the garage. And you end up knocking the walls as you're parking. And this happens more often. So if this happens more often, it's a sign to show that this person is having some kind of loss of brain function. Misplacing things. Sometimes you place your phone somewhere, you place your jacket somewhere, and then you forget. Maybe your car keys, you forget. Maybe you move with the car to your place of work, and in the evening you come back on foot, and people ask you, but you went on using your car, and say, hey, did I? And you go back to your workplace to find your car there. So these kind of things happening all show that you're having loss of brain function. Then we have, of course, parts of the brain that deal with mood, personality, behavior. So when someone starts having issues with behavior, with personality, having mood changes, it is okay and it is not bad for people, human beings, to have mood swings and what. But when this become rampant and all the time you're having mood swings that are abrupt and sudden, for example, from being happy and all of a sudden you become sad out of nowhere without any particular causality, this is a sign that you're having loss of brain function. Behavior, maybe someone can't tell that, for example, urinating in public is something which is not acceptable by behavior. So such things show that you're having loss of brain function. And then you have loss of initiative. Maybe this is the kind of person who liked going out in the evening for a run, liked playing football. There are some activities they really liked. But then they start having funny behavior. You tell them, oh, can we go out and take a walk? He says he's not interested, doesn't have the initiative. Maybe it's a person who liked maybe baking cakes and there's no more initiative. Liked going to work and there's no more initiative. This is also an early sign to show that you're having loss of brain function. So these are some of the, in summary, those are some of the early signs that you can recognize among your people, your peers, your relatives, to show that you're having progressive brain, loss of brain function. And once these are detected early, maybe there are things you can do to mitigate them. Thank you very much. I hope this was very helpful. I remain your physician, Dr. Andrew, and thank you for listening.